Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm your host, Carl Reed.
And I'm Smoke Dixon.
If you've been watching from the beginning, you've been unfiltered. But for those who are watching for the first time, why do you need to stay tuned in, Smoke?
Coach, you're going to hear two football guys unpack the unfiltered truth about what's going on in today's college football ecosystem from the lens of two coaches, two players, and a college football GM. See, Reed, let's get unfiltered.
In today's episode, Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire joins the show. Learn why he runs his college football program like an NFL front office. Safety, Ohio State, Caleb Downs as a running back. Smoke, do we think this will work? Is the NFL front office model the way of the future of college football? Smoke and I will discuss later on in the show. Next, we're going to welcome in a legendary former Texas high school football coach, multi-time state champion, took his game from there to Baylor, and now is the head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Welcome, Coach Joey McGuire.
Man, thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Coach, we excited to get you, man. You and I have been talking back and forth the last couple of weeks on social media, and we were very excited to have you on the show today. We're going to get you right into this.
Okay.
Now, Coach, you helped build a winning program at Baylor following a stellar 14-year run at Cedar Hill High School in the Fort Worth area. You've been honored as a Texas High School Football Hall of Fame member. What has been the formula for you building a winning program?
Well, some people will talk about X's and O's, and some people will talk about different programs, man. I think my number one thing is I absolutely love my players unconditionally. Everything that we do is built on that. Some people think that's a soft word. I think it's the strongest word in the English language because there's all kinds of forms of love. And, man, I tell my guys all the time, they're stuck with me for the rest of their life, and I truly care about them. And I'm trying to make them the men that they're going to become, and the husbands and the dads that they're going to become. And I'm trying to help them, get everything they can get as far as their dreams and their goals.
Now, Coach, you made the unconventional jump from big-time high school coaching to joining Coach Matt Rule at Baylor. At what point did you decide that you wanted to go into coaching college football?
I had the opportunity from 2006 to 2016, but, two things came in the way. One's Reagan McGuire and one's Garrett McGuire, my two kids. I wanted to coach both of them. I coached my daughter in powerlifting. She was placed at the state powerlifting meet all 4 years she was in high school. And then I got to coach my son in football. And, that was really important to me. I think one of the, if not the most important titles you have is being a dad. I take that real serious, and my kids were my world, and so I kind of put some of the things on hold whenever it comes to some of my goals, just to make sure that I was there for them, and so that was why I waited till 2016. I had to interview the very next week. We got beat in the fourth round of the playoffs by DeSoto, and I was interviewing for a job with Matt Rule that very next week.
Coach, Texas Tech, you've done an outstanding job recruiting, evaluating, retaining talent locally. Since 2023, you've been a top 25 program. You currently sit at number 3 in the Big 12 Conference in the class of 25. All of your 14 2025 commits so far are from Texas, but one. How have you went about securing homegrown talent?
I think, one thing I have an advantage, man. I know all these high school coaches. I always tell them, man, I'm a high school coach that gets to coach college football. My DNA is in Texas high school football. And so I think there's a trust factor whenever it comes to whenever I get on the phone with a coach, whether it's the head coach or the position coach, and I always tell them, man, I need your help. I need you to be able to tell these parents and the kids that if they do choose Texas Tech, that they know I'm going to take care of them. And so I think we have a very good name whenever it comes to how their players are going to get treated. I think it's 7. We have 7 coaches, support staff that were Texas high school coaches, and so I think we have a lot of guys. We've got a lot of connections, and just kind of works out that way. We've got some different guys we're recruiting right now from all over the nation, but primarily we really stick to our Texas roots.
Well, Coach, and you've been doing an awesome job on that. Now, Coach, being a former coach myself and a former general manager, I understand the importance of personnel. You're one of the first coaches to truly set up a front office model that looked like the NFL. Can you take us through the way that you set up your front office and how that's helped in recruiting and attaining that great talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's unconventional. I think we're going to see that it's going to trend more that way, especially whenever we start talking about revenue sharing and, possibly treating that almost like the salary cap. But with me, I got to give Matt Rule a lot of credit, man. I'm probably not the head coach at Texas Tech if I didn't work for Matt Rule and watch the way he recruited and the certain things that were important to him. And I met a guy through Matt Rule named James Blanchard. He's my general manager. He was an NFL scout. We worked together with Coach Rule at Baylor. And there was so many times whenever I was a position coach, I would watch film, I'd write up all my evals, and I would say, hey, this kid should be an offer. Well, then that had to go to the coordinator. And maybe the coordinator was busy, so he didn't watch the film for another week, or maybe it was another few days. And all of a sudden, that kid's already got 2 or 3 offers. And Monday, I said we should have offered him, and now it's Friday. Well, then also maybe that defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator disagreed with you. And I was like, well, then why am I watching film? If that defense coordinator disagrees with me, shouldn't he watch all the film? And so it just, to me, the process was slow. And then the other part that happens is because you're also coaching a team and you're trying to build a room and you're worried about game planning, the film evals start getting pushed farther and farther back on kind of what's important during the season. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to take a group of people that we trusted, that we could identify, this is what a Red Raider looks like, and then let them do that all day long. And so basically, I have a personnel department that all they do is watch film. They're gathering information. They're looking for traits. And once they feel that this is a Red Raider, they're going to call the head coach, the high school head coach. They're going to tell them that we want to offer this young man. And then the coaches now get lists of who we're recruiting. So they watch the film, but they're not really watching the film to say, hey, we're going to offer this kid. The offer's already happened. They're watching the film just so they can talk to the player about, hey, I watched this game and this is what I saw. But my personnel department's the one that is really pushing of, hey, here's who we're recruiting. Once the coaches bought into that, it freed them up to coach a lot more and not spend so much time trying to get caught up on their evals. And I know, man, you've been through it, man. It is so frustrating because it takes forever. You might take 2 or 3 weeks to offer a kid that should be an offer back in 3 weeks of building a relationship with him.
Coach, I want to follow up with that. I want to ask you this because you said something interesting there in terms of your coaches having to buy into that. How hard was it to get your position coaches and your coordinators to buy into them not handling the recruiting and the personnel guys and the front office guys more dealing with that?
It's tough, especially early, because if you think about it, traditionally, it is what it is, man. It's just kind of the way the business has been run for such a long time. So many people are so territorial. So it's either the area coach that at one point, if y'all remember, not very long ago, everybody was worried about who the highest recruit ranking was, and different parts of the industry says this is the best recruiter in the nation, and this is whatever. And so you had some guys that were very territorial whenever it came to their area. And then you had some guys that were very territorial whenever it comes to their position. And so we had to start out by saying, hey, it really doesn't matter where this kid's from or whose area it is or what position it is. We're trying to recruit the best players. So let's get all the egos out of the way when it comes to that. And then I had to get them to understand, man, like your job is to recruit and develop these guys and get them on campus. If we make a mistake, we've all made a mistake, and I'm not pointing my finger at you. And that's how it's been. Like in most places, if you miss on a guy and you're the one that was pushing the hardest, it's your fault and everybody's blaming you. And we're trying to get it to more where it's a group think. We've got a bunch of individuals that have watched this, but I also tell these coaches, like, guys, all these guys do whenever it's talking to Sean Kinney and Wes and Brian Nance and James Blanchard, all they do is watch film, and then all they do is gather information. So they're going to have more information about the kid if we were going to go head to head on who we were going to recruit. And they're going to have more information probably than the position coach does, and they have more time to do it because that's all they do. That's all they do is evaluate, watch film, and gather information on these players.
Coach, what's the next step to make Texas Tech go into the conversation of winning the Big 12 and securing a spot in the college football playoffs?
Keep my quarterback healthy. I always tell my all the boosters and the alumni, like, guys, I mean, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, there's no way I would have bet a paycheck that I would not have had to play. You think about this, the last 2 years, I've had to play 3 quarterbacks year 1 and 3 quarterbacks year 2. Not 1, not 2, but 3 in both years due to injury. And so I think one of the major keys for us this year is, keeping our quarterback healthy. And then we've got to be more productive on both sides of the ball, but we've got to be more explosive on the offensive side of the ball to have an opportunity to play in the Big 12 championship.
Well, Coach, this is where we kind of lighten up the mood a little bit and have our true or false conversation with coaches. And it's real quick, calling out, just throw some at you. You can say true or false, and if you have something to add on to it, go ahead. But the first question I got for you, Kyler Murray, GOAT quarterback, Texas high school football history, true or false?
True. He beat me both times. I've seen him live and in person. Absolutely love the kid. Good friends with him and his dad, without a doubt. 42-0, and it was multiple games that he should have lost, and he came back and willed guys to win.
Coach, true or false? Is the super conference model we're turning to sustainable for college football?
It is. It's going to be painful to lose some traditional matchups and everything, but I think where we're going, you almost have to pick the top ever how many teams, 64, whatever that number is, and with the model that we're currently under, I think that's where it's got to go to. I loved what Coach Kelly said whenever he was at UCLA about having a commissioner and having the power conferences go that way. I think it almost has to.
Coach, true or false? Texas high school football, best brand of high school football in the land.
True, and I'm going to preface it by you have to eliminate recruited high schools, meaning you cannot put IMG in that conversation. You cannot put Bishop Gorman, who kicked my butt in 2016, and they had players from 17 different states. When you're talking about true traditional high school football, that I think that Texas high school football is the best in the land.
Coach, true or false? Should prospects make their decision based on how much NIL money they're going to receive?
False. And I think it's about to really equal out. But I think the biggest thing that you have to understand whenever you're making these decisions is you still have to make them on what's best for you to develop as a man and as a player. It's real money. I don't want to discount that it's real money, but at the end of the day, if you're a prospect that has NFL traits that can be developed into an NFL player, there is a big difference in the money that a person is going to make at the NFL level and a person is going to make at the college level. There's exceptions. There's no doubt. I know there's some guys that are making some crazy money or have made crazy money, but for the big picture, I think you still have to pick a school that's going to help you develop as a man and as a player.
Now, Coach, Carl is only saying that and asking that question, true or false, because you got that big money bank over your head, and he sees that.
I hear you.
True or false? Prospects should transfer if they're not getting significant playing time at their university.
That's a good question. I'm going to say true, but I want to preface it again by saying, what year are you in? It's so hard for you to be a true freshman and expect to play significantly, and you're not physically ready, or especially depending on what position you're playing. And then I also think, are you still being developed? If you're still being developed, I think you got to be patient because your time's coming. But I do think, we had a guy that left this year. I love him. He's awesome. He was our number 2. He was going to be a number 2, and he was able to go somewhere to be a starter. I didn't want to lose him, but I truly understood why he left, and I could appreciate that.
Coach, before we let you get out of here, we always, at the end of the show, we ask our coaches that come on, who are some young guys that we don't know about yet that in the coaching profession, or maybe they front office guys that we should know? A couple of guys you think could potentially be rising stars in the profession?
Are you talking about coaching wise?
Yes, coaching wise.
Coaching wise, man, I think the world of my offensive coordinator. I know he's a Power 5 offensive coordinator, but Zach Kitley is a bright young coach. I think that I had the best tight end coach in the country. Whenever another young guy and Josh Cochran, I think those two guys are really, really good at what they do. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think I have the best outside linebacker coach in the country. And man, he's really, I always tell everybody, I think my coaches get tired of hearing it because I compare them so much, but CJ IU, man, he is a rock star whenever it comes to a position coach. And, those three guys are really, really good football coaches.
Coach, I got a quick follow for that. Just being in the personnel space, is there a young person in your personnel office that needs to get that light shined on them too?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, man. Because you asked that question, I went straight to coaches. Yeah, Brian Nance. A lot of guys try to come in, and he's our number 2. He is our director of player personnel. And the one way that I was able to keep him was getting him that we're very close, getting him to understand his next move is not to make a lateral move as a director of player personnel. His next move is to be able to run his own personnel department. And so he understood that. He understands that's where he's got to grow and what he needs to do. But Brian Nance, man, he is a rock star.
Coach, we want to thank you for coming on. Your assistant told us before the show you're getting that new football facility built down there. So when you guys crack that thing open, you got to give me a call. Me and Smoke need to come down there and check it out.
Be down there, Coach.
I got you. Y'all, I'll give you a full tour, and man, I'll get you field passes. Y'all can watch the game on the field and then check out everything we got going on.
Coach, thank you. We appreciate you for coming on. We definitely will be there.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Thank y'all.
For more information on Texas Tech, visit InsideTheRedRaiders.com for more information on Texas Tech football and recruitment.
Coach, that was a good one, man.
He's got a good thing going down there at Texas Tech. And this, to me, Smoke, is always good to see the guys that started off as high school coaches get an opportunity, because we know we both coached at the high school level as well. We know that's really what the dream is for most of those guys.
Right. But even with that, you saw him take his steps and understand the importance of, you know what, I got a family that I got to take care of first before I make that step. Because he alluded to having opportunities to go to college. But you and I both know once you take that step to college, your time gets shortened. So he had a chance to coach his young ones, and I thought it was a beautiful thing. Now, the next thing that I thought, Carl, that the advance that they have in terms of the personnel office. You know, you and I have been having this conversation, and I've said it time and time again. The schools that figure out that the model is of the NFL of having personnel lead the way in terms of showing and letting the coaches know and pointing the coaches to the right direction of the players and just allowing the coaches to recruit and develop are going to be ahead of the game. And that's why you see proof in the pudding in their recruiting and getting the right players lined up, and they're doing a pretty good job of that.
He's the first guy that I've heard talk about taking the control away from his assistant coaches on who they're recruiting and totally turning that over to the personnel department, which I think is something that's innovative.
Now, Coach, you probably going to say that's the first head coach you've heard say that. But the first person that probably brought that to you was a guy named Smoke Dixon. Because that's the same way that we set up at the University of Maryland. Because my whole thought was it's the hardest thing to do in coaching, right? Just developing your players and spending time with them. And now you have to go out and identify talent. And I never wanted to tell a coach that they aren't good at identifying talent, because there are some coaches, but most coaches are good at coaching, game planning, schemes. But when you have a personnel guy that's sole job is to evaluate talent and not be biased, like Coach said, and just get the right players, regardless of area or who's recruiting them, that's when you start getting the formula of success. When your personnel department matches your coaches and your head coach is driving that, and he's letting everyone know, remove your ego from the formula, because if one wins, we all win. And they've been doing a good job of picking up the right guys. Like you said, 14 and one out of state, man, they put a fence around their neighborhood and locked everybody in.
And it's crazy, Smoke, because that ego creeps in on most staffs. He's been able to get his guys to buy in, and I think that's why his program is trending in the right direction.
Couldn't have said it any better, man.
Vegan Smoke Dixon, I'm spitting facts. Now let's hit some heated topics, just in time for group chat.
Smoke and I have decided to let you in on our unfiltered group chats so you see what trending topics we discussed this week and let you know what's really going on in the world of college football. This is the first topic we'll get into. Analyzing Caleb Downs as a running back. Now, Smoke, I'm going to tell you something. I saw a lot of people being critical of Coach Prime when he played Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. And so now reports are coming out that Ryan Day is planning on using Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, as a running back. Why do you think Ryan Day would explore this idea?
Well, Carl, I'm going to go ahead and tell you like this. Now, when you watch Caleb Downs in high school, he was a dynamic playmaker. And it's a good athlete, regardless of what side of the ball he was going to be on. But when you get Caleb Downs from the University of Alabama to Ohio State, you got to do a little bit of recruiting. You got to sell something. So I'm believing that Caleb understands, and so does Ryan Day, understands the market and the branding ability of what Travis is going through out there in Colorado. So this was put in play a long time ago. We're just hearing about it. But this guy is dynamic with the ball in his hand. And when you get into recruiting and getting somebody out of their building, you got to pitch something else other than we're going to pay you. Because this guy understands that in 3 years, he's going to be in the first round and collecting a lot of money. But he also wants to add something onto his trophy case that Heisman.
What do you think the ultimate goal is here, though, with a move like this? You have a loaded backfield. What's the ultimate goal when you talk about moving Caleb Downs to running back?
Well, the ultimate goal, Carl, you're a coach, is to score more points, right? So when you have playmakers, you got to get them the ball in their hands. And if you have 2, 3 is even better. And that's where you get Chip Kelly to have the ability now to really get into his bag. And we heard Urban and Jim Tressel tell the world the other day that this is one of the most loaded and talented teams ever, not just of this year, ever. So what pressure is that on Ryan Day? You got to win a national championship. So if I have a dynamic player on defense that I got to get the ball in his hands 3 to 4, maybe 5 times max a game, maybe 15 to 20 reps totally on offense, I'm going to put that ball in his hands.
So this is national championship or bust. You say Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel put the bullseye on his back.
Well, Coach, listen. I don't know if it's a bullseye. I don't know if it's the eye of a bull, but the target has been marked. When your former two coaches that's won the national championship, Urban and Jim Tressel, comes out and tells the world that you are the most talented team ever, Reed, if they would have came to your high school and said, Reed, this is the most talented team I've ever seen you have, what's the expectation?
The expectations championship or bust. Period.
A bust. You understand? So that's where he's going with it, with the understanding of that. And that's why he's getting all of those guys, including Caleb, an opportunity to touch the ball. But also, it's easy to go ahead and get into that Heisman conversation if you have some production on offense, if you have those splash plays. And again, we all got to remember, he's a dynamic punt returner as well. We saw that at Alabama when they took Kool-Aid out and put him in.
Absolutely.
Now, see, Reed. Now, we understand that they already got two backs back there. They got Henderson and Judkins. Both of those guys, they want to touch the rock a lot. What impact do you believe this is going to have on those two?
I think that it depends on how they manage the situation and how they bring it to them. They just hired a new running back coach in Carlos Loughlin, who came over from Oregon, and now he's the running back coach at Ohio State. You bring in Chip Kelly as the OC. Do you sit Henderson and Junkins down and make this make sense to them? Obviously, they see Caleb Downs in the room with them, so they know what's going on. A lot of programs, Alabama was great at this in the Saban era. You know this, selling these guys on less is more. The less amount of times you touch the ball here, the more tread you're going to have on the tires when you go to the National Football League. So Henderson has been banged up a little bit over the course of his career. This might be something that helps them out if Downs can come in and add another dimension. Guys do get competitive in games, but they're going to have a lot of blowouts too. It's going to be a lot of opportunities for guys to touch the ball. I don't think that this impacts them because everybody who came to Ohio State or who stayed there this year stayed for one reason. They want to win a national championship, Smoke, and that's a team goal. So everybody has to buy in for the chemistry to be right to do what they're trying to do as a college football team this year.
Now, see, Reed, I know we're both Prime guys. Why isn't Ryan Day getting any flack for doing this? And Prime has been getting crushed for allowing Travis Hunter to be a marketable guy.
Well, you know, Prime has his share of haters and critics and people that don't like the way he does things, but this is right up Prime's alley. He thinks guys like Caleb Downs. I talked to him about Caleb Downs playing on both sides of the ball, and Prime is not a hater. He's a congratulator. He thinks that guys that have this type of skill set should be given this type of opportunity, and he was all for it, as you can see with him having Travis Hunter and what he's allowed him to do as a player.
Now, see, Reed, you know I'm known to come off the top rope. My dark horse for this year for the Heisman, Caleb Downs. Dark horse.
Smoke, you know what time it is. It's time for our flag on the play. Things that don't sit right with us. Who are you throwing your flag on today?
Well, Carl, I'm going to reach deep in my pocket and let this loose because I just sat down and heard Coach McGuire give every college head coach the blueprint for success moving forward in today's college football ecosystem. That's getting away from the old system of allowing coaches to do everything from evaluate, write reports, recruit, develop. That model has now become obsolete, in my opinion. The NFL model's up, Coach. You have to get a good personnel department with trusted eyes to evaluate the talent that you need in your building and now alleviate the stress from your coaches of getting it right, pressure, developing, and coaching. Coach, you and I both know one of the hardest things to do is game plan, recruit, evaluate, and build that relationship. So if these coaches don't evolve, they're going to get pushed out. Coaches, time to step up. NFL front office model is here to stay. Get with the program or get gone. See, Reed, who you throwing the flag on, my guy?
I'm throwing a flag on the ridiculous Prime haters. You saw the reports this week, Smoke, of people saying that guys were kicked off the team or suspended because they did not attend Shedeur Sanders' rap concert. That's a ridiculous thing to publish and a ridiculous thing to say. I know that people are critical of Coach Prime, the way he does things with the transfer portal. But when people attack your kids, that's out of bounds. Nobody was forced to go to Shedeur Sanders' concert. And people have been also piling on about the Shiloh situation with the bankruptcy. Shiloh has not technically lost the case. He didn't show up to court, and he's going to get an opportunity to prove and show his side of the story. And that they can't wait for that to happen. Smoke, that's going to do it for us today. Make sure that if you're on our YouTube channel, you like, share, and subscribe. Unfiltered 24/7 every Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Smoke. We have just went unfiltered.